So this is for me a very old topic because during my military career I have been the first one in 1991 to create a model of psychological support before, during and after military operations. And it has been repeated in other organizations. Like this is something very nice. Garder le contrôle, it exists in all European languages, and it's some kind of a small guide for soldiers, diplomats, humanitarian workers. And it's full of very nice recommendations. So I asked you to think about what we should do before, during, and after deployment. You know me, so I don't have to present myself. And you can see these, my wife, who is a grief therapist. You know where Belgium is. So for me, my experiences as a military psychologist started in '93 with the Operation Restore Hope, a total fiasco in Somalia. There was also the African killing fields in '94. So it was a very nice operation, but it went, like I said, from Club Med to horror when the genocide started. We had the crash of a military airplane in '96 in Eindhoven, and then between '96 and '98 I went on regular deployment to the Balkan Wars, and I went to the operation zone as a military psychologist in the first 2 weeks and the last 2 weeks of the operation. The first 2 weeks where we did a lot of things with small groups of soldiers in order to prepare them for staying away 4 to 6 months. And the last 2 weeks, I went back to the operation zone in order to prepare them to come back. So some of the objectives of the courses. I think, and I find it back in your presentations, to have at least some teaching about potential sources of stress, learn people to recognize basic cumulative and traumatic stress symptoms, and receive information on coping mechanisms. And also understand the concept of post-mission stress and reintegration. So it's what I see in a lot of humanitarian aid workers is that they always want to go to operations, deployment, but when they come back, they don't want to adapt. And because they don't want to adapt because there is no help, there's no support. It's like landing in a minefield. You leave your family, you leave your village, you leave your community, you go away to a war area, you adapt to the war area, and it's very difficult to readapt when you land back in your country and you find that in fact no one cares about everything you lived through. Your organization doesn't care, your family doesn't understand you, and the only ones who understand you are the people who were with you in the operation. So you become a stranger in your own environment. So we also have to be familiar with the concept of psychotrauma and the influence traumatic events have on ourselves, our relationships, our family, and also on the vision we have from what is life. And the last 5 years I've been working and writing much more about moral injury instead of trauma. Moral injury, like they tell you as a soldier, you go to Somalia to help poor people and you come in Somalia and you understand that you're not helping poor people, that you're in the middle of a war between drug lords. So the fact that they lie to you, you're cheating, you come back and you find that no one takes care of you, and this leads to a moral injury, and it changes, it modifies the vision you have of the world, and you lose your capacity of meaning and sense giving. So let's hear what we will share on pre-deployment, peri-deployment, and post-deployment counseling. On cumulative stress. So, for example, in the presentation of Paul, which he will give, that there is also what you know from your psychology course, the general adaptation syndrome. The general adaptation syndrome from the stress theories. And this is something I used also to describe that normally when you are deployed in an operation or in a humanitarian crisis, in a disaster scene, that the maximum amount of days you can stay in this context is like 5 or 6 months. It's 180 to 200 days. So it's the same thing if you, as a soldier, you go to the front, there is a maximum duration you can stay. So in the beginning, when you're well trained, you have a high capacity of resisting to stress, but over time it decreases. And it's important to learn someone how to cope with the fact that the resistance to stress is decreasing, is going down. Okay, I will not go into these definitions. Okay, I was just showing this one. So this is the first model I wrote about, saying that if you go on deployment, that normally for soldiers, not for humanitarian aid workers, but for soldiers, your stress resistance level is rather high. This is something I don't see in diplomats. This is something I don't see if, for example, nurses, doctors, social assistants leave their office, their hospital, and they go to a disaster scene. For many, the stress resistance level is not so high. So it's much lower. So for soldiers, you have to think they made the choice to become a soldier. They are in good physical condition. They are well trained. They have the equipment. They have strong leadership. And if I was thinking about the European external European External Action Service, so they sent diplomats to crisis areas in the world. Their problem is that people working on the field, their leaders are in Brussels in their office. So the decisions are taken by people who have an administrative function and they don't feel the field. If you would go to, let's say, Doctors Without Borders or Médecins du Monde, everything which happens there is bottom-up. And in a lot of organizations, the problem is that the one who has the leadership and the authority does not feel the field. It's a very important source of stress. So, and then after time, you find most people after 5 to 6 months coming into the stage of exhaustion. So, when was I coming in my experiences as an operational psychologist in the armed forces? When did I go to the operation zone? First 2 or 3 weeks, last 2 or 3 weeks. So I think it will be interesting to hear you in your presentations. So this presentation was a long presentation I made for a European course which was designed to train civil protection officers from the whole European Union in order to train them to use the same logistics, concepts, etc. And this was the course they received. So it's a very long presentation which I have sent to you. So I think it's now interesting after this small introduction to hear your presentation. So the first presentation was before. What do we have to put in place before? And I think that it was Maria Teresa, no? I will just ask Robin to go to the second presentation. Est-ce que tu veux quitter cette présentation et aller dans la présentation, la deuxième que tu trouves sous le nom de Parigi, ce qui veut dire Paris?
Hello to everybody, and thanks to Eric and the whole organization of his precious meeting. Okay. This is up. Okay. No. Okay, yeah. Okay, I briefly present myself, and I am an emergency psychologist who gained experiences in 20 years working as a volunteer in the Italian civil protection. My group and I have been involved for the first time in 2009 in the big Central Italy earthquake, and then in the other earthquake in Emilia-Romagna in 2012, and then in Marche, the Central Italy area, in 2016. But our major and continuous work in Torino is the aid to the victims of a small daily trauma event that are hit from a trauma event in their house or in the streets, in their workplace. And we formed a squad of psychologists that are involved together with the ambulance system to go to these places and to aid the people just when they have been hit by the traumatic event. And we are doing this for 15 years now, okay? We are volunteers, so our experience doesn't take all our time, because at the same time we work as regular psychologists in our workplaces or privately. And with the COVID, okay, no, here, the big one, okay. We learned very much about these issues, the mental preparation, the pre-deployment phase, especially in the last crisis that was due to the COVID, years, the COVID, and in that occasion, we helped by phone people of the town, citizens that called us, and we did big work with the medical professional who were involved in helping the citizen, especially people who were on the phone, taking phones from the people who were very bad, and people who went around the town with their ambulance. And we have been asked to help the personnel because in Italy, nobody helps them. There is not an organization for psychological helping of medical personnel. That is a medieval stage, you know, of this situation. Well, one thing I want to involve you in some discussion is about the fact that we understood that the main task to promote our well-being before going on the spot is to think that we're going to be involved in chaos. And our main task is to transform this chaos gradually into a cosmos, into a more organized place. What do we mean for chaos in a psychological sense? In a psychological sense, chaos means that the situation is highly complex, and all people, but rescuers are hit by the overexposition of a lot of stimuli and the dynamic of projections, of psychological projection. I will tell something about that. Well, the complexity is easy to understand because there is inextricable interweaving of factors. No? Primary, health, ongoing dangers, organization, chain of command, people, other rescuers on the spot, and cognitive and emotional. All these factors go together and work together. Overexposure, the rescuer is overexposed. So you must know that. And overexposure is a kind of bombardment producing by what? By request, by doubts, by the need of the people. And you must know that the atmosphere, the psychological atmosphere, is psychotic. It's not a normal asset of functioning. There is confusion. Okay. And projection is a factor that is not very so often known. That is, rescuers and victims project to each other a lot of different familiar figures, like victims can consider you an enemy or a father or a son, and you do the same. So there is this strong communication, unconscious communication among people that must be very much controlled. I know after the deployment in the center of Italy that many volunteers find love in that place and then left their original family to marry someone that was from that place, because it's very strong. They were involved in a very strong projection dynamic. Okay. What we can do as psychologists is take care of fragmentation, because everything is fragmented. All organizations do their job in a kind of separate way, not really coordinating, maybe in some technical way, but not coordinating and talking to each other. So we must know that the victim fragmentations influence rescuers fragmentation, and that rescuers fragmentation influence victims fragmentation. So we have to coordinate among us, not only in the technical way, but in a very human level, at a human level. Our task is to keep all elements connected. This is mental health. one thing that emotions are important. Usually rescuers think that emotion is something very female, it's not for men, it's many things, you know. It's the ladies' of charities. No, it's something that is delegated to ladies of charities. But we have to work with emotions, in fact. We know that an emotional intelligence exists, and it is a very important factor. And we, at the beginning of our job on the spot, we have to take care of our emotions before. Okay. So before we leave to aid others, we must know something of our leading emotions. Which kind of emotion motivate us to go there, or to take that to have that job? Why we are a physician? Why are a fireman? Okay. Why I am a volunteer psychologist? What moves me? I made research about these leading emotions, and the result of this research, about 10 years ago, were specific emotions, both positive and not so positive. Compassion, moral indignation, worry, sense of inadequacy, so I go on the spot to feel better. Challenges related to the developmental psychosocial crisis in growing, like young people that grow, facing suffering, feeling involved in the humanity of others, witnessing life, sense of generativity. And it's important to be aware of our strategies. Which kind of strategy do we use when I'm involved in an emergency? The research tells us that it's important to concentrate on the task, to narrow the focus, to look at the technical problem, to dissociate in a functional way. I dissociate. That is very important. And I would like to ask people, which are your strategies to deal with emergencies? That can be discussed. Something. Okay. Black humor. It's a medical. In the medical society, it's very common. I dissociate a lot. What kind of strategy? Okay. But it's very important to be aware. Eating food. Yeah. But afterward, I do that when I am anxious. Well, food is so important. We work with ambulance volunteers, and there was a woman who used to be an ambulance volunteer, but now she takes care of lunches and dinners for everybody, very big meals for everybody, and she's very important. Okay. The hugs? Hug somebody, yes. Yes, it's so important. I know that I can detach, but whenever somebody near to me, close to me, embrace me, hug me, my emotion can be allowed to come up. I experienced with my colleague. Thank you. Okay. Well, I am very sensible about organizational factors because I learned from medical personnel, that is, in the COVID period, that was so horrible what they experienced, because the organization they belonged to was really hierarchical. And nobody would tell them that they didn't know what to do at the beginning. They didn't have precise answer. But they didn't ask to the personal, what do you think about? What are you experiencing? They were on the phone. They went to people's houses. So they collected the data and impressions of what was going on, what was working and what was not working. But nobody asked them to tell what they experienced. So the detachment from the top, of the top hierarchies with the bottom was dramatical. An effective organization must have precising roles, clear defined objectives, sufficient resources, clear chain of command. We know that, but in practice, when we are in emergency, something destroyed all these elements. How your organization can be ameliorated? This is another question I would ask you. The medical personnel will tell, they didn't know anything at the beginning about COVID. Why didn't they tell us? Why didn't they say sincerely, listen, we don't know much, but together we can understand better. They didn't do that. So it was a hierarchic model that didn't function. Then you have to be caring of your inner self. In a lot of ways you must know, and we can share these methods like meditation, leisure. I never heard someone saying that sexual pleasure has a role. I don't know why, but they don't tell you. They suggest meditation, friends, family, art, not sex. Do you have an answer about this thing? We know that has a big role, because sex is life opposing the death you face. So it's very, not only is normal, but it's very helpful. It's very helpful. Professional supervision, etc. Caring of you. You must care of you. Well, in our experience, group work is a main factor that can balance rationality with emotion. So before being deployed, you must have an experience in group work with your colleagues. Teamwork. The team is a crucial role. The membership, the solidarity, cohesion, place of reprocessing. But you cannot really create at the moment. You must know your peers. You must work with your peer before. Then another thing that is not considered is the rescuer's family. The medical personnel had to solve their problems with the family by themselves. Medical personnel went back in the COVID period, went back home, and they had children, they had a spouse, and they had to think by themselves how not affect with COVID, to transmit COVID to their family members. Nobody thought about that at the beginning. Then they found hotel rooms for them, but only after a while, a long while. But family also have a role in support their members involved in emergencies. So they must be involved in the preparation, being involved in the discussion before. The method you adopt is very important. We transferred our method called the psychological setting even when in the setting, traditional setting is not possible because you don't have a study or a room, you know, but the setting is something that is in your mind. And this setting that is in your mind must be reinforced by colleagues and the method you use of continuously talking to each other, confronting to each other daily, sometimes twice a day. Okay. Thank you to you.
I like to thank you, and I excuse about my English. Yes, I excuse about my English, but I like to thank you for you, because now attention about important work is a team, as a group. As a team, as a team, and when they work the team of psychologists, they need to have a feeling, the feelings a group. It's as eating together is make the emotional high level together. And maybe as a dancing together, because dancing as touching, social models are touching. And I thought that it's very important when as the situations stress, because touching it's turn back is the childhood when the mother is hugs the touching, and you evade this from your colleagues. This is, thank you. It's more important to feeling, touching spiritually, touching physically as a feeling, and maybe psychological touching, and maybe physically, maybe.
Thank you.
Ça va en anglais?
Ouais, ça va. Okay. Hi, thank you very much for your intervention. Of course. My name is Mary. I'm a Red Cross volunteer and a student in psychology. I just have a question because you use the term fragmentation. What do you mean by that, please?
Fragmentation.
Well, it means both the technical fragmentation of different organizations that work in the same area, but it becomes also a mental fragmentation. You don't see all what happens in a gestaltic way. Okay.
Thank you, Maria. I was very shocked by everything what you say, and it's very interesting for me. I am not a psychiatrist. I'm a humanitarian. I was working in the International Committee of the Red Cross on the field as a logistician. And for me, what's popped up on me when I was listening to you, in my practically life, I never have time to have the possibility to take care of myself. The assignment was for 1 year minimum, up to 2 years, depending on the context. You leave, you have a mission, you arrive in your workplace, you don't know the people. Ideally, you have a room, but not all the time. You don't know the people you are working with because the mission is individual, then you arrive there. And more bad, the emotion is a sign of weakness. It was the typical word for my organization that I am too sensitive to do this job. In that time, I was collecting dead body. Huh? It's not that easy, but you cannot say it. And you cannot express this emotion just to simply say, hey, it's not normal what I see on the street. And when you arrive home at the end of the working day, it's not a home. It's not your home. It's just a room with other people, but you are still in a very hostile context because even the sound from the street is gunfire. So the people say, yeah, you know, it's just a party, the soldiers, they shoot in the air. Yeah, I'm not so sure. And when I listen to you, I feel a so huge gap between what was my reality during 18 years and what you say.
My God, big question, but I'm sure you have strategies. Let's discuss about that.
I think one of the important things already is that in the beginning, there is anxiety, and it's protective. And if you stay long, also same thing like young unexperienced soldiers going to the front in Ukraine, in the beginning they fear, anxiety. But when nothing happens, the fear goes away. And then it becomes dangerous because you come into indifference, into je m'en fous, I don't care anymore. And then it becomes dangerous. And after 1 year, when you come back in your country, you don't have rules anymore. No parking rules, no speed limit rules, no behavioral rules. I don't care, je m'en fous de tout. And you're surprised to go to the Carrefour and see that no one carries a gun. So you say there is permanent shooting. When you come back, you miss the shooting. You get afraid of silence.
I thank you for these problem questions because once time I was working in military hospital and returned back the Soviet soldier from Afghanistan, and it was a very high-level problem because they had afraid the silent and afraid when somebody is behind them, and they all look very quickly what happened then. But now you know that our country is a war, and our psychologists now have the stress what they do when our soldiers return back from front, because we don't have experience to help that soldiers, the first problem. And now nobody think about this because now it's problem more important for survive. But then we had, and for me it's very bad to say it this way, but we had this problem. When our soldiers return back from Afghanistan and they don't have the psychologist help, they begin use alcohol as they defended from the stress. And then that soldiers had the problem as a toxic dependent. And the people don't think about him as a hero, but began to think about this as a criminal this way. And now I have this pain and this fear that our men in future met that problem, and I will be very thankful and you help for us for prophylactic that problem.
Also to say something on this question? No, you have a microphone. Just to speak in stereo.
Well, I think that method can protect you a lot. Method of work, like introduce some rhythm in your day, together with others. I know that I have been in Kosovo with trying to help volunteer there, And they didn't have a method in their work. They were following in a very fast way their duties, their daily duties. But they know that it's very important to have time to talk together, to stay together, time to eat together, time alone, listen to music, or doing something very important. Introduce a rhythm is basic. It's basically important. That I know, but I know you know. I imagine you know much more than I do.
Okay, thank you, Maria Teresa. I would hope that there is coffee now, so we can just take a short break before going on to Po.
Okay.
Okay?
Coffee is working now?
I hope so. So please come back.
Okay, I have to, we keep this microphone very... Ah.
You know, I realized when you were talking that it's exactly what I was doing this weekend.
This is a second.
Okay, so our next speaker. So we might have some more participants in this session because I was drinking coffee with 3 French firefighters who only work in international deployment in USAR. USAR, Search and Rescue. Donc voilà. Ils ont un tout nouvel uniforme, à qui paraît. So they're wearing their very new uniform for the first time. So maybe they will join us. For coffee, you have to leave the Expo and go to Chez Paul, which is at 50 meters. No, it's not Chez Paul, but it's Chez Po now. Huh? So Paul Pascal Libes, who is one of our long-term members and colleagues, a board member of the European Association of Fire Rescue Psychology, who is the vice president since 10 years, working for the fire service in Andorra. And you can see his short bio. He's working also as a psychologist in different situations with different actors. He can say a few words about himself more. And the important topic now is what to do during deployment in order to stay resilient. And during my coffee break, when I was speaking with the French colleagues, one of them is a doctor and psychologist who made his thesis, a doctoral thesis about this. What keeps a firefighter resilient in international deployment? But it's not only about firefighters, it's also about humanitarian aid workers. So,
okay, let's go.
Yours.
Okay. To start my presentation, I first present my country, my little country, Andorra. Okay, it's between the Pyrenees mountains, between Spain and France. Okay, we are only 80,000 people who are living there. Okay, but we receive 8 million tourists per year, okay, and you have to prest service on the tourists and the Andorrans too, okay. Voilà. To start the presentation, how we can to help humanitarian helpers during an intervention. Just to introduce some aspects about the stress, it's a psychological, cognitive, and emotional and behavioral response of an individual who tries to adapt to internal and external pressures. And it's important to understand the different concepts of stress, because our health will to dirige in these concepts, okay? Who Eric have introduced before. when in a mission, military mission, or for example, in who are 6 months, you are the during, for example, in earthquakes or missions, for example, in firefighters, it's not 6 months during, it's for 15 days, 1 month, okay? And the different missions are different durings. But we have to identify the different phases of general adaptation syndrome, okay? Like Erika explained before, there are first phase, there are alarm reaction, and second phase, the resistance copy with the stressor, and the last phase, the exhaustion reserve deplete. Why we explain the gas? Because we have to focus in this phase to prevent the first phase, okay? There are different types of stress, the stress or distress, like you know, okay, the stress, remember that our resources are more than our request. And distress are when our requests are more than our resources. Okay, and it's a base of focus on our stress and our interventions like resilience. Okay, and we have to work on this stress when this stress appears in our workers. There are different sources of stress for critical incidents. Stressful successes, sources of occupational stress, and environmental sources of stress. What are stressful events? Major events that cause multiple deaths, injuries, etc., like death of injuries of a colleague, death of children, loss of the victim after the prolonged rescues, emotionally charged incident, personal identification with the victims, or mass casualties, for example. There are sources of occupational stress. It's related to the type of the task that they require, like time pressures, physical demands, overburdened responsibility, emotional demands, work areas, limited resources, etc. And for the end, there are sources of environmental stress due to environmental conditions. Okay, if you work in a different country with a different climate, with a different culture, for example, it's related for the sources of environmental stress, and it's outside the comfort zone. Okay, it's the reason. Okay. Related with these conditions, there are most common effects in the emergency workers. Like, I don't know if you two, hello? You know the compassion fatigue, burnout, acute stress, ASD, and PTSD. Okay. The burnout syndrome, as you know, it's a psychological and emotional exhaustion resulting from the constant and repeated pressures from an intense commitment, long period of time. Okay, we have a perception of difficulty in adequately confronting the situation, and there are an attitude of indifference, routine, devaluation, and emotional distancing. It's a gradual and cumulative process. Okay. Indifference, compassion fatigue, there are symptomatology similar to the victims because he uses empathy as a general working tool, develops an intense relationship with them. Okay, there are, for example, can appear the compassion fatigue in a work in a period of time when we work a long of time with a victim. and we have a relationship directly with this victim, and we can appear the compassion fatigue. Okay, he identifies with the victim becoming more vulnerable, possibility of the appearance of own traumas, and there is an ambiguity of roles, the savior role. Okay, there are excessive demands and poor definition of functions. To explain the differences and the burnout and compassion fatigue, it's a quick resume. Burnout, it's a gradual appearance in contrast to compassion fatigue. There are quick appearance. Burnout, that it's more irritability in comparison to the solution of compassion fatigue. Burnout appears the personalization and symptoms similar to choose affected in compassion fatigue, and there are distancing and late recovery. In burnout and compassion fatigue, there are quick recovery. In resume, burnout appears more step by step, and disappears more step by step. And compassion fatigue appears more quickly, and disappears more quickly too. Acute stress, we work about acute stress in the first moment. It's given once the event is over. Okay, experimentation flashbacks regularly stimuli, and avoidance, not talking about the subject, not going to the place, activation, high arousal. Okay, it's adaptative. Why it's adaptative? Because it's a normal reactions in front of not normal events. Okay, that's a concept, basic concept. It's less than a month. And if during 3 days, between 3 days and 1 month, there are risk of suffering acute stress disorder, ASD, and more than 1 month, there are risk of PTSD. Okay. There are just to introduce some concepts. Acute stress, the differences between acute stress disorder and PTSD. Acute stress disorder is a psychological condition that can develop shortly after experiencing a traumatic event. It is characterized a range of symptoms that may significantly impact an individual's daily life. Okay. And post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition that can develop after experiencing or witnessing a traumatic event. There are differences. The main differences is the duration, 3 days and 1 month, and more than a month. Okay, symptom duration, causes and risk. ASD, it's typically caused by a recent traumatic event. In contrast, the PTSD can develop after a traumatic event that occurred a month or even years ago. Okay, it's possible that PTSD appears 1 year, 2 years after a traumatic event, for example. And the last one is the treatment. ASD treatment focuses on managing and alleviating the symptoms during the acute phase. And for us, the PTSD treatment often involves more long-term therapeutic interventions. Okay? The focus of our presentation. After the introduction of the theoretical concepts, the important is how we can minimize the effects of the stress from the organization. Okay, and there are the primary intervention, like Maria Teresa presented us, before the critical incident. The secondary intervention, it's during the critical incident. We normally speak about the 0 and 72 hours after an incident, and tertiary prevention after the critical incident. Okay, my presentation is focused in the secondary prevention. How we can do the primary prevention. the actions before a critical incident to prevent these reactions. We can establish professional profiles, okay, personal selection accurate, and training programs like knowledge of potentially stressful situations, identification of coping skills, and training of these specific skills. Okay, it's a resume. The secondary prevention, what actions we can do during and 70 hours after a critical incident. It's a general actions. It's a briefing. We can do a briefing before a task, demobilization, diffusing, the briefing, and we speak on a tool we are developing in our association, in the European Association of Psychologists, AEPSP, c'est l'examen d'urgence psychologique. We'll explain this tool in a few minutes, okay? About briefing. It's before a task or a period of work, facilitated by a team leader, and cultural, we speak about cultural understanding and personal preparation. That means an information on what to expect, psychological and physical demands, okay? Ways of coping for the people, peer support, and coming home, okay? It's a resume before to go in a mission, okay? It's a briefing. Demobilization. These names of demobilization, diffusing, and debriefing, it's now adapted because they are developed by Mitchell more than 14 years ago, and in these years they are adapting the names, the demobilization for RET, and rest, information, and transition sessions. Okay, it's the new adaptations. Critical incidents may trigger a wide range of physical and psychological symptoms, including increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, and anxiety. Okay? Demobilization, the RET, is a way of calming employees following a critical incident and ensuring that their immediate needs are met. Demobilization includes these steps. A meeting for those involved as soon as possible, summarize the incident and clarify uncertainties, okay? It's for that, the demobilization is in the first step that we can do after a critical incident. Invite questions and discuss issues of concern, show care and support, including the provisions of psychological first aid. Draw up a plan of action and make short-term arrangements for work responsibilities, okay? Diffusing. Diffusing, it's a session. Their name is adapted nowadays for immediate small group support. Okay. When can use diffusing and when we can use diffusing? It's 24 hours before a critical incident. It's a semi-structured informal session, small groups and homogeneous groups. It's important this part because we have to separate these sessions, the civil persons and the military or emergency personnel, okay? And this kind of tools, the session is dedicated for emergency or military workers, okay? It's important to know that. It's not obligation of a speech. Participants can explain their experiences and reactions, reconstruction of what has happened in our intervention, information on normal and expected reactions, and preparation and information for the debriefing if it is done, okay? And it's important to understand this kind of sessions. It's not a therapeutic sessions. It's to prevent, okay, the common reactions like PTSD, for example. Debriefing. What's the debriefing? The debriefing, the name nowadays is updated. It's PECS. It's powerful event group support. the objective of the debriefing are legitimize and facilitate the expression of emotions regarding the event. Okay, neutralize the feeling and abnormality of a unique case. It's the power of community and the different experiences of the rest of the people. Neutralize this feeling. To promote cohesion and group support, prevent post-traumatic stress, and provide psychological support and assess additional needs. Okay. Sorry, the principles of the when we can use the debriefing. Normally, it's the 24 and 72 hours after the event. Okay, and for us, the firefighters, the firefighter department, we speak about the critical incident. For example, in incident where you have a risk for your life, or you are a risk. I feel you have a risk for your life, and I the same feeling than you. Okay, it's for that the debriefing, for example. But we have to differentiate on a military mission, for example, when every day, for example, every day, there are the same feelings. Okay, it's probably the briefing. We can use the debriefing after the mission. If not, practically every day we have to do on the briefing. Okay, it's important to separate the two ideas. It's not psychotherapy. It's a voluntary participation to promote copings and strategies. It's one of the principles. Accelerating normal recovery in people with unusual reactions to disaster. Okay, it's normal reactions with not normal experiences. Moderate by two people. One of them is, if it's possible, it's a psychologist. Okay, but we can peer supporter trainers. We can do a debriefing, for example. There are different phases in the debriefing, and like the objective is to build and the complete experience between the different participants. Okay, about the same event. Okay, there are different perspectives about different people in the same mission, for example, or no event. Okay. Then an introduction, discussion of relevant facts, thoughts, emotions, symptoms, and responses, copings, and re-entry. Okay, we start about more the cognitive fields. We decrease on the more emotional, and we finish in the more the cognitive feelings. Okay. The difference, there are a table between the different sessions between briefing, the mobilization, the fusing, and the briefing. Okay, that's we are speak about before a task, after shift, before 24 hours after the event, and 24 and 72 after the event. It's a progressive sessions, for example. Here, okay. I don't know. Voila. This is un schéma. Merci. J'introduis après l'examen. C'est juste, c'est pour c'est le français qui me vient à la tête. Just to introduce in a schema, demobilization is the first step, the fusing, that's the briefing, and after that it's the third prevention, it's a clinic. Okay. And it's important to separate the first psychological aid than clinic aid, okay? Because we are, if you are supporters, okay, we are centrating the psychological aid or to prevent, or we can do the diffusing or the briefing, okay? But it's important to separate the clinic than the support, okay? And this evolution is included in the critical event management, okay, than the critical incident stress management for the Mitchell, okay. In our association, we have developed a tool by Sylvain Goujard and Eric Desoir too, named the Examen d'urgence psychologique. This examen, this tool, we can pass during the event and after the event to know how we can aid our workers. I don't know. Si je pousse plus fort, je... Je sais pas. C'est bloqué. It's blocked. I don't know. Voilà. Next one, please. Voilà. Thank you. It's a technique, the EUP, examen d'urgence psychologique, it's a technique that has the purpose of determining if the person needs psychological help. It allows obtaining a quantitative and qualitative analysis of the psychological state of a person faced with a critical situation. That allows you to quickly obtain a subjective measure of the traumatic event, depressive and physical exhaustion with the help to the 3 scores. And if depend which result you have, you can choose different techniques to help your workers, okay? Rapid psychological triage and can be used by non-specialized personnel. That's for us, it's very interesting, this tool, because it can be used by psychologists, by peers, non-specialized, and it's a good tool for us. Recommended evaluation within the hour, the end of the intervention, as close as possible to the event. Okay? Can also be used in repeated measurement to carry out medium and long-term monitoring. Okay? If you pass this exam can take how much time? 10 minutes maximum. In 10 minutes, you are able to have a score, the stress level, moral level, physical exhausting level. Okay, and if depend which punctuation you have, there are different colors between if you need to have an intervention or urgent intervention, okay? And that's be related with objective and subjective, like 5 QES. There are different questions about how the worker feel about this intervention, okay? And you have a score on punctuation and feelings, and between the 2 scores, subjective and objective scores, you can manage your intervention, okay? If you have to dirige this intervention with diffusing or debriefing, for example, or another kind of interventions, okay?
Est-ce que je peux juste intervenir? So this is a very important moment in the explication. That's why I would like to just add something which will make it clear for you. In the first time, this from green to red, it's what we use in medical services in hospitals as une échelle de douleur, a scale to measure pain. And the whole concept of psychological support we use is that when someone goes to a 7 or an 8, in the first, suppose we don't work with the emotions. We stabilize. No exploration of emotion. So if someone is in exhaustion, épuisement, we will first just help to replenishment. For replenishment, donc reconditionnement physique. And if someone is in the red, niveau moral, in the red regarding emotions, so we have psychological shock, depressive emotions, and exhaustion. And what Paul was explaining about the different types of intervention, from demobilization, diffusing, debriefing, we use these scores to see where we will put the focus of a support. So that because otherwise, this is inspired from medical triage.
And another point, thank you, Eric. And another point, it's important about this tool. It's you can pass this tool yourself. Okay, it's not you have to pass for a psychologist, for example. If you don't feel very well, you don't know how you can need or demand help, psychological help. You can pass this tool, and you can looking for this website, and these instructions are in this website if you know it. Okay. This one, this the explain you.
So what is the black? If you know from medical triage, it's who are we going to treat medically at first. And if someone receives a triage score black, that means now we don't start anymore. He's dead or almost dead. So that means when we have someone in a state of shock and dissociation, and we know from this reaction that that person will not be useful anymore on the field, that means direct evacuation. So someone who is acting like in a psychotic way of behavior, we will not keep him at the scene of the accident, but that means automatically breakdown, state of shock, dissociation, or physical collapse. So that's the black. That means we are not going because the red, the yellow, the green. What we do is everything which keeps our colleague, humanitarian aid worker or soldier or firefighter, everything we do to keep him operational and to re-engage in the battle. And black means lost, evacuation.
It's related with the triage of the first aid ambulances, for example. Okay, it's the same colors. Okay. Okay. If you need more information about this tool after the conference, no doubt to ask us. Okay, and we'll help you. Okay. And in the secondary prevention, these actions are trained in our personnel to manage themselves. How can the actions the workers can do to manage the stress, for example. Okay. And for example, there are use guide meditation, practice deep breathing, maintain the physical exercise and good nutrition, and there are another, the last time the social media are important, and how you can manage these social media are important to manage the stress too, and connect it with others. Okay. About these points, use guided meditation. There are many guides meditations, and I can propose some of them, some of meditations, but it's important to train these practice, to use this practice of meditation to have a well done or meditation. Okay, and there are some meditations who are focused before a task, during a task, and after a task. Okay, it depends which purpose you have about this meditation. Practice deep breathing. It's a great way to reduce the activation of your sympathetic nervous system, which controls the body's response of fight or flight to a perceived threat. Deep breaths taken in 4 counts of 5 seconds, held for 2 seconds, or released for a count of 5 seconds. There are different techniques of breathing. If you want to, after that, we can practice some of these breathings if you want, okay? Our personal, we are training courses during 8 hours. All of our firefighters practice these kind of exercises, okay? Maintain physical exercises and good nutrition. It's important too during a mission. These effects are very important. Nutrition, for example, it's important because the stress can deplete certain vitamins like A, B complex, C, and E. It's very, very important to focus in that. Normally, when our workers are in a mission, these routines are completely different, like everyday routines. Okay, it's important to focus in that. If you are good physical exercises and good nutrition routines, it's important to maintain in a mission. It's very important, this point too. Manage the social media. Many people use social media at night, for example, and these people are trying to wind down for the evening, resulting in fewer overall hours of quality sleep. And in a mission, for example, the sleep are very difficult. And if you are related with before going to sleep, and to stay 1 hour, 2 hours looking for social media, it's a problem for these people too. And connecting with others, it's important to connect the people, and if you can establish the different routines and different activities, for example, after a mission every day, for example, in order to connect the workers between them. Okay, thank you. And tertiary prevention, it's what actions you can do after a mission to prevent these effects. It's the medium and long term. We have a psychological counseling, psychotherapy if necessary, and tracking process of evaluation and identification of late reactions. Okay. And like Maria Teresa have spoken before, it's important to adapt this kind of prevention and the families too. Okay, to integrate the families in all this process. And we use different techniques during intervention. The people, the workers, can use these techniques to manage the stress, like butterfly embrace, cardiac coherence, vagal breathing, the safe place, meditation in full consciousness, and tips to be able to sleep better. Okay. I don't know if you know some of them techniques. Okay. The embrace of the butterfly. Why there are many techniques of to reduce stress or the manage stress. Okay. Some of these techniques are focused before emission, and some of them are focused after emission to reduce the level of stress. Okay, all of these techniques, it's to manage the stress after intervention. Okay, in order to sleep better, for example, or to abstract the problems on everyday missions. Okay, the branch of butterfly, you know this technique. Some of okay, it's related with MDR technique. And it's, if you want, it's tapping bilateral movement of alternating right-left movements, okay? And just tapping, stimulate the bilateral tappings, okay? It's like this. It's everyone can tape in their rhythm, and you can close the eyes, and there are the different ways to practice this movement. It's this technique. It's a good technique to help many groups. Okay, to work together in order to reduce the stress. For example, there are the other techniques we treat. It's the cardiac coherence, for example. It's very simply technique. The rule is 3, 6, 5. 3 times per day, 6 times every minute for 5 minutes. It's a rhythmic breathing that regulates the heart and respiratory rate. Regulation of stress and anxiety through breathing control. Okay, you can inhale for 5 seconds through the nose. Exhale 5 seconds by mouth, okay? And this simply movement, you can repeat the 3, 6, and 5. For example, one time per at morning, one time after lunch, and one time before to go to sleep, for example. There are a good recommendation, for example. There are many applications, APPs, that you can practice this technique, for example. There are another, you know this technique too? This technique we are recommended, for example, in the examen d'urgence psychologique, and we related this technique, okay, for reduce the level of stress too. Okay, you can the stress control through breathing and vagus nerve stimulation. Okay, you can breathe in during 3 seconds and inflating the belly for 3 seconds. Okay, hold 3 seconds, and during 6 seconds you can breathe out. Okay, it's important, this technique you have to exhalate gradually for 6 seconds, not directly, and it's important to maintain this time, because if not, if you practice too much in 10 minutes, for example, you have a risk on the blood pressure, for example, to decrease the level of blood pressure, for example. Okay, we use, for example, these techniques, for example, for a new firefighters. in their first interventions, for example, when they are so many excitated, for example, to have a good level of activation. Okay, it's a technique you can do. You can practice rapid, very quickly, and very effective. Thank you. This technique is related with breathing and vagus nervus activation. Okay, as you know, the stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, and this technique activates when you pressure your belly. Okay, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system and contrast the effects of the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, it's related with the respiration and activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, there are another example of the technique we can use is the safe place. You know too the safe place. Okay. We explain this technique, for example, before going to sleep. Okay, and when some people, some worker have problem before going to sleep, for example, we can use this technique and help the different recommendations before going to sleep. For example, we recommend these recommendations: get up and go to bed at regular times. Sometimes it's difficult in emissions to have this kind of schedule, but if it's possible, we recommend to start and to go up and go to bed in the same time. Okay, go outside every day. It's necessary. Okay, for the D vitamin. Okay, physical activity of about 30 minutes per day. Avoid late naps and naps for more than 30 minutes. Establish daily routines for all activities: work, meals, exercise, leisure, relaxation, and sleep. Reducing of eliminating caffeine and limiting of avoiding alcohol consumption are exciting. And it's a point we have tried about for your question, no? The problems of alcohol in the militaries after a mission. No? It's a point very important. Dinner 2 hours before going to sleep. Avoid fatty, spicy, and canned foods, seafoods, and foods that cause gas. It seems not important things, no? But when you are in a stress point, all these factors that we think it's not important, they are more important. They are multiplied these mean actions. Okay. Preferably a warm shower or bath, not too hot. Room without light temp from 18 to 22 degrees. Avoid blue light before going to sleep. For that, it's important the social medias and the screens. The blue light is important too to prevent. And one of the techniques, very simple and to works very, very well for us, is the Jubilee. You know the Jubilee name, the Jubilee technique? It's a more simple technique before go to sleep. You have to mark 1 hour before go to sleep when you have to stop all your thinkings. Okay? Okay, if I have a conference today and I go to sleep, yesterday, for example, I thought about my conference, no, stop. It's 10 p.m., I don't thought about my conference, okay, and I go to sleep, okay. I go to sleep, my conference, okay, I accept these things, but but I try to don't think about that, okay. It's a technique very important to our conscience that are the moment to sleep and there are moments to do not trade or preoccupations. Okay, and it's important to mark an hour. For example, midnight, 10 p.m. for half to the jubilee. Another, it's a practical relaxing activities before going to sleep. Example, breathing, safe place, cardiac conference, and the rest. Okay, and that's all. That's I try to resume our normal process during an intervention. Okay, I know if you are questions for this presentation.
Okay, thank you. Merci, Paul. There's a lot of stuff in this presentation. Si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez les poser en français et on traduira. Donc voilà. On a parlé l'anglais parce qu'on était supposé avoir un forum international, mais allez-y si vous voulez en français. Hein.
N'hésitez pas à parler français si vous voulez. Hein. On peut parler français si vous voulez.
Du coup, bonjour. Est-ce qu'il y a des routines ou des façons de faire pour réduire le stress, comme vous avez présenté là, dans des bonnes conditions? Mais vous, je crois que vous êtes pompier, si ce n'est pas une bêtise. Est-ce qu'il y a des méthodes travaillées pour les pompiers ou militaires, ou même infirmiers ou des personnels qui seraient de garde et qui n'auraient pas toutes les conditions remplies pour une safe place, pour une zone de confort idéale pour réduire le stress?
Voilà. Aujourd'hui, très bonne question. Nowadays, I ask I answer in English, okay? The question is if there are some routines or no the workers in order to reduce the stress. Nowadays there are the top. That's the technique, the optimisation du potentiel, for example. It's related in this way, for example. There are it's marked there are some routines you can do when you start your turn, okay? And in order to dirige your mind to be prepared for the work, okay? And during your turn, the exercise, the some activities you can do, and after your turn, when you go home, what routines you can do to be relaxed and develop, for example, the techniques of the optimization du potentiel, but. There are different techniques diriged. For example, when you start, in our case, in the firefighter and or department, in the training courses, when you start to work in the firefighter department, are diriged for example, in this kind of techniques. What you can do before, during, and after your work, for example.
Something very practical. And there has been a lot of research to prove the efficacy of it, is after exposure to traumatic scenes, to the most important thing, and that's also the butterfly or even the EMDR therapy, is that it occupies your working memory. Il faut occuper la mémoire fonctionnelle. So what is very effective is that as soon as possible after traumatic exposure is that you play a video game like Tetris, you know Tetris? And it uses your working memory. So when you come back from a difficult intervention or when you're thinking, preoccupation, ruminating, and you start to play, there is no transcription from the short-term to the long-term memory. Donc, vous occupez la mémoire de travail avec comme conséquence qu'il n'y a pas de consolidation de la mémoire traumatique. So, just to give an example, I am supervising police officers and psychologists who have in their work to look at videos of child pornography. It's very shocking. So we asked them to turn off the sound, to limit exposure to only 1 hour, and immediately after they go to another room in which they play on a large screen, they play Tetris. And it protects them from taking these images back home.
Which are the best techniques you experience, you choose for yourself?
For myself, the meditation, no doubt. Meditation before and after an intervention for me, and sport. There are the two techniques. Sport is not a technique, but it's to aid myself to be connect with my mind, my work, my family, and okay. But meditation, the problem of meditation, in difference with techniques, as you have to train more days. It's a training course than the meditation, as you know. Okay, but if it's possible, for me, meditation is no doubt on a sport for me.
I like to improve that questions, because if I use meditation, what the thema, imaging the meditation, natural or something another, and now I am stressful and I use sport, but as the running. And a psychologist, I understand that I use running or excitate my physical and psychological, energical, and physical and exhausting, or I like running away from my imaging the stress. And what is you recommended in this way?
For me, I think it depends on the person. For example, no. For me, in my case, running it's perfect. I practice, for example, running practically every week. But in my country, there are a lot of mountains, and for me, in a quarter, I can go in a ski station, for example, and ski mountaineering for me. It's a perfect way to practice the sport, because there are two things: the excitation, the activity, and when I go up on the mountain, I can see all the I don't know the name in English, the l'horizon, for us who are living in the valleys. It's like a city, because you can see more than 100 meters after your eyes, and when you climb up on the mountains, you can see the horizon. It's a quite experience, like very very relaxing, and excited and relaxing at the same time. Okay, for me it's the best one. And I change the activities, for example, cyclist or running. But it's important because to connect the two things: the excited activity and the mind activity to relax too. For me.
I could also recommend you to look at on YouTube for EFT, emotional freedom techniques. EFT. You all know the acupuncture points, les points d'acupuncture, from traditional Chinese medicine. And these points work for acupuncture, but also for acupressure, when you press on these points. So emotional freedom techniques is a series, is a set of techniques where you start tapping on various points. When you're thinking about something dramatic or difficult and you start tapping, your attention shifts to the feeling of tapping. So look, YouTube, EFT, you will find a lot of examples. It's like a short protocol. It takes only 3 to 5 minutes, and it's quickly stabilizing.
I can ask, maybe it's not good address, but now we can speak a lot about dissociation. When the people has the straight situation, the breath work as dissociation from the reality. And when I flight at first time, I look down, or I feel myself very bad because I am our reality situation. And for me, it's maybe fear that my brain go away from the reality and finish as a disorder. What you think about this mechanism defense?
So we have several answers. I think dissociation is not a good word. It's not the same as dissociative reactions. So there is functional dissociation, what Maria Teresa was talking about. And it is very important to make the difference between somatoform and psychoform dissociation. So firefighters, soldiers will mostly have a functional psychoform dissociation, which helps them to fall back on learned response, crisis response behavior. That's good, but the fact that there is narrowing of attention, helicopter view, etc., also is a source of error, because you don't see everything and you lose important information. But in the best case, you fall back on learned behavior. I have been in training which is very similar to special forces, paratroopers. We learn things, strict survival skills, but in fact we learn to dissociate. If you're a victim, like a victim of aggression, sexual violence, you have mostly somatoform dissociation, which is that the body, like from here to here, you don't feel your body anymore. It's protection. So these are dissociative reactions, but the essence of dissociation, if you go back to Pierre Janet in the 19th century, is the split up of the personality. In personality parts, some parts which are always living in trauma, and some parts who don't have any connection with trauma. So when we speak about dissociation, we have to say which kind. Are we speaking about breaking up the personality in parts? And then you have le moi divisé, dissociated person, or are you speaking about dissociative reactions, which are loss of capacities on several of our 5 senses, but some other senses work extremely well. So that would be... We accept one more question, and then it's time for another 10-minute break. Then we have a last presentation of Hélène, Sébastien, and a little bit of myself.
Merci. Merci beaucoup pour votre intervention. Je me permets de parler en français, du coup c'est plus facile pour moi. Vous avez évoqué du coup un certain nombre de techniques à mettre en place à la suite d'une intervention, qui sont pour la majorité des techniques individuelles. Je pense à la technique du papillon et à celle de Tetris, par exemple, que vous aviez évoqué. Après, vous avez parlé aussi de diffusing, débriefing. Est-ce qu'il y a des exercices particuliers à mettre en place de manière collective qui fonctionnent et qui peuvent peut-être servir de médiateurs à la place du fait de discuter immédiatement des événements, ou en plus de discuter immédiatement des événements?
Par rapport au diffusing, par exemple, vous avez dit.
Par exemple.
Oui, oui. Ce sont des techniques collectives, le diffusing, mais there are some techniques of these techniques, for example, de l'embrassade de papillon, peut se mettre en place collectivement aussi. Oui, c'est ça. Alors, si j'ai compris pas très bien la question, c'est si on peut mettre en place des autres techniques collectivement. Après de quoi?
Après un événement.
C'est important, mais when we speak about an event, okay, we have to know which kind of event we speak, okay? If it's a traumatic event, it's a depressive event, or exhaustive event, okay? Because it's important, this concept, because we can use diffusing for all. We can use to use relax techniques for all. And for example, for if we speak about traumatic events, okay, if we are focused on that. It's the technique that we use the critical incident stress management like a reference, okay? But this technique is adapted nowadays, okay? But if you speak, for example, for depressive event, for example, there are a death of your colleagues, but it's not a traumatic event if it's a depressive event, for example. There are the other techniques they are recommended more than, for example, diffusing or debriefing, like the groupe de support au deuil, for example. D'accord.
Je parle vraiment dans le cadre de la suite d'une intervention de secours avec des camarades intervenants de secours.
Ouais.
Du coup, quand on organise ce diffusing ou ce débriefing, la manière de mettre en place des exercices de manière collective, le coup de Tetris, je trouve ça assez brillant en fait. Et je me demande s'il y a des choses qu'on peut mettre en place ensemble, collectivement.
Voilà, ça dépend des institutions. For example, in our case, for example, after a critical incident, it regulates all the people who lived a critical incident have to do all together and to practice a technique of demobilization, for example. Okay, and we practice this kind of techniques, but they are regulated. Okay, because we are a hierarchical organization in the firefighter department, and I don't know if in the Red Cross it's possible to take place the kind of routines, for example. In the soldiers, for example, a military system like a firefighter system, a police system, it's more easier because there are a hierarchic organization. Okay. I don't know if I answer your your question, but if depend the places, okay.
I think what is important is that you train reactions outside the context of crisis. Donc, si vous voulez mettre en place une technique collective, une réaction collective, il faut l'entraîner dans d'autres contextes, alors ça devient une habitude qu'on va utiliser en temps de crise. Par exemple, je ne vais pas vous choquer, mais je vais quand même donner l'exemple. Avant d'être psychologue, sapeur-pompier, j'étais pompier et ambulancier volontaire. Et après chaque intervention, avant de retourner dans la caserne, on se mettait en rangée pour pisser ensemble. Et ça nous mettait à rire avant de pleurer.
For me, it's very important to write down, like keeping a diary or writing my experience. Writing is a good way of elaborate. Yes, yes, and I recommend to my colleagues, psychologists, to keep a diary, and when they give a relation about a support they gave, don't follow a schema, but just write what comes up to your mind in a very spontaneous way. After that, you can follow a schema for the relation.
Okay, Paul, if you want to add something, if not, then I would like to resume and just we come back for the last session. What to do after difficult interventions. The last session, which starts at 12:30. Okay, so 15 minutes of break. On n'a pas applaudi. We didn't. Has been in the second one, but it's okay. The important thing is to have an exchange over what to do, and especially when to do something after deployment. If I look at my military career, I never succeeded in having a systematic post-deployment support for soldiers coming back, even not today. So most of my work has been between 1991 and 1999. For me, 92 is the siege of Sarajevo, former Republic of Yugoslavia. And 96, 97, 99, and 98 are the wars in Croatia and Bosnia. 99 has been the Kosovo conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh. One rule for my work, so I'm trained as an infantry officer with paratrooper training, and I can only say the more units were combat units, the less it was easy to provide support. So we could provide support to logistic units, transport, engineer, so people going to war zones to reconstruct schools and bridges and roads. But if I was working for infantry, paratroopers, armored troops, my own colleagues refused support for the soldiers. Another rule is most problems, psychological problems, after operational deployment appear between 3 to 6 months after. So that means not immediately after. You go on a long-term deployment, and when you come back, you're so glad that you're back home that you think that everything will be nice. So you're happy to see your wife and your children and your parents, but over time, only over time you will discover that for you everything changed and not for them. So there is no communication anymore. And everyone expects you to be happy to be back, and everyone sees that you had a nice salary, because when you go on international deployment you get extra pay, so why complaining? So I always said coming back is much more difficult than leaving home. This is one of the slides of Hélène, so I will leave the micro to Hélène to explain this.
So just to introduce ourselves. So Hélène Ross from Co-Create Humanity and Sébastien Couturier. So we coming from Switzerland, and we are really happy to co-facilitate this session with Eric Desoir. And Sébastien will tell you more about the context.
Thank you, Hélène. The context, first, we are humanitarian. We are not professional like you. We are also professional, but not on the Secours. We have been deployed on the field. And for me, what I realize now to be with you, humanitarian people, first we have a profession. We can be secretary, mechanic, logistician, administrative worker. Then we join the Red Cross. For my case, it was the International Committee of the Red Cross. Then they send you in the field. And that's make a big difference because originally we are not prepared about what we will see. We just arrived there, and it was usual to send us and to see how we deal with what we see on the spot. And for me, the point is just put yourself. You do your school study, you finish university, you join the Red Cross movement, they put you on the plane, and you arrive in Congo, in Darfur, or Nagorno-Karabakh, and suddenly you are in middle of a country in war. And the first image that you will see when you go out of the plane, it will be probably dead animals lying near the road. And when you are the fresh delegate, you just arrive, it's a shock. But if you say it, all your colleagues around you, they will start to challenge you and say, look, this is the fresh one, the blue, and it's not normal. And for us, I speak about what I know, ICRC is still a taboo. On all those contexts, you can have many different examples.
This database is something that organizations and humanitarians are referring to. Each year you have statistics about how many people died, were injured or imprisoned, etc. Those numbers are going to increase much more in 2024, unfortunately because of current conflicts all around the world, and especially in the Gaza Strip. So you can have a look at this, what we call AWSD, Aid Worker Security Database. You have a lot of information about what is going on all around the world. You can go to the next slide. This is now on Eric.
Okay, so that's the objective of what we should learn about post-deployment, but in the pre-deployment stage. For the armed forces, I developed a model which is still currently used, and the model is like a timeline, and we aim to have everyone who will go on the deployment together with the most significant other, which can be parents or the partner, the spouse, in what we call a 100% meeting, la réunion 100%. It means everyone is present 2 months before departure. We explain the whole timeline of psychosocial support which will be put in place. 1 month before deployment, there is another meeting in which the most important issues about the deployment are explained, like don't forget the insurances. Insurances like your loan insurance, l'assurance de vie. Because in some cases, the insurance companies stop covering when you go to war deployment. So you have to know this. We developed for the armed forces a whole file, which is really like 40 pages, and it has to be filled in by the partner who is staying home with the children. And there's a much of confrontation in it because in fact you are preparing for your death and your partner is preparing for you not to come back from deployment. So it gets real. Then there is the moment of the farewell, and each month, during 4 or 6 months, each month, there will be meetings in the operation zone, but also at the same time meetings on the home front. It means the rear unit. You have, for example, an infantry battalion, 600 people, and you have 25 people staying home, and the rest goes on a deployment. These 25 people staying home will take care of the families each month. And during that family gathering, there is a direct line of contact with the operation theater. What I did is going to the operation zone, like I explained, in the first 2 weeks to give psycho-educational briefings, like briefings about how to be a father at a distance, stress management, and relaxation, like what we call now technique d'optimisation du potentiel, optimization techniques based on sophrology, auto-hypnosis, autogenic training, etc. At this moment, we have, for example, a very nice project in the armed forces since several years, and we call it Mindful at Defense. It's a project that all soldiers receive a training in mindfulness. So we have now, and it would have been my dream, but I'm not active anymore, we have now military officers, psychologists trained as mindfulness trainer, and they go to units. At the end of this timeline, at the last 2 weeks, there were briefings in small groups of 20, 30 people in order to prepare people to come back. After homecoming, 1 month after homecoming, there was again a 100% meeting with everyone who was on a deployment with the most significant other for the post-mission debriefing. So pre-deployment, we are working on these objectives, being familiar with post-deployment readjustment, the 3 R's, reunion, reintegration, readjustment. Be able to identify the emotional stages of deployment. Because that's very interesting. I have, if you are interested, I have some articles on the emotional stages of deployment. In the beginning, we did something very wrong. Soldiers were sent away for 6 months, and in the middle of the operation, there was 1 week of vacation close to the operation zone. For example, when the operation was taking place in Croatia, there was a hotel, Split, which is a Croatian city. Well, in Split, which was a very nice city, in Split, the families were brought to a hotel and reunited temporarily for 1 week with the soldiers. The result? Fiasco. Because the soldiers stayed together and started drinking, and the wives were sitting with a group of females looking at their men who were not really interested because time was too short to readapt, so there was this 1 week was a week of conflict. And after this vacation, when they had to go back to the operation theater, they didn't adapt anymore to the rhythm at which they were already used for these 3 months. So you see what Paul was telling you also, the stages of deployment, so the general adaptation syndrome. When in the beginning you have this drop, you mobilize your resources, you get into a higher resistance to stress, and this higher resistance of stress was broken down by this 1 week of vacation. That's why we said, let's not send them away for 6 months, but only for 4 months. The pitfalls in the post-deployment readjustment period are explained in leaflets in a brochure. A typical aspect for males sent away, imagine just a group of paratroopers in an operational deployment, mostly or only men. What do? They watch lots of pornography. They come home after 4 months of exposure to pornography, and when afterwards we had sessions with the females, they said, I really felt like a slut. I felt like a prostitute because there was no normal emotional intercourse anymore, because you imagine the frustration of males after 4 months. They had to rely on themselves with masturbation or pornography, and then they come back, they are exposed. They come from Afghanistan in 8 hours back to Belgium. The females are waiting for the first romantic night with their prince, but they felt like prostitutes. That's what they told us. So we also need to work on this stigma. How will you cope with sexual issues if you're going away for so long? The armed forces in Scandinavia, they just said, when you're in another country, in a crisis country, it's forbidden to go to prostitutes. If you go to prostitutes and we catch you, it's immediately back home. Most other countries, Germans, French, Netherlands, Belgium, they said, you are not supposed to go to prostitutes, but if you would go to prostitutes, we will indicate where it is safe, and you receive a package of 15 preservatives, 15 condoms. You're not supposed to use them. But if you want to use them, go there and go there, because there the prostitutes have been checked by our medical doctors. So this is very double. So these are our so it's about post-deployment counseling, but what we teach people who are being sent away in the pre-deployment stage.
This is your slide.
Okay. Yeah. So I think this is not something new. We also saw it in the presentation of Po. But it's important to identify your resource persons before deployment. So what we did is a screening of every candidate, a screening on several points: emotional stability, psychological stability, social support network. Because we know if we are sending away someone who has a poor support network, who comes out of a divorce, who is emotionally unstable, who already has alcohol issues before deployment, we know that we're going to have trouble. For psychologists, I would say if you send away people with a poor attachment, unsafe, unsecure attachment, you will have people you'll send away, they will not be able to find secure attachment in colleagues. So we did a screening, but the screening is not a selection, because we needed every person, because we have a lack of personnel. Most of our units they're only at 60 or 70% of their personnel they need. That means we're not able to select, so we screen them. Don't self-medicate. We have a policy in the armed forces. I don't know how it is in NGOs, but in armed forces we have a policy that if you use drugs and we catch you, it's eject. But I'm not sure that if you would test our soldiers today, I'm not sure that we would not catch almost half of them smoking cannabis, using party drugs, some of them cocaine. So I don't think that we dare to test, because we would find out something very troubling. Just mention a country like Somalia. All the males in Somalia, first thing, when there was sun and it was 45 degrees, they did not work. Only women worked, not men. Men were sitting under the trees and they were chewing cat, like amphetamines. After a whole day of chewing cat, when it got dark, they were so fucked up that they started fighting. So during the day, imagine our soldiers, they were only exposed to men sitting under trees and not working, and females working on the field with a child on the back. And it was very frustrating for us. And there were all situations like a boat with food help from the European Union arrives in Kismayo in Somalia. So food for the hungry, and the Somalians said, when you want to discharge the boat, you do it. If you want that we do it, you pay us $50 a day. So what you have over time is also that not only trauma, like Sébastien explained, but also frustration and anger accumulates. Because you don't accept the situation in which you are, you're a witness, and you have only two choices. Getting traumatized, and then you have to start medicating or drinking, or you adapt your norms, and your norms shift towards some kind of a war morale. Like in Somalia, in Darfur, in Congo, people might say, these people don't respect themselves, why should we respect them? So that's the source of moral injury, and at the same time, cynicism, ironic behavior, black humor, you adapt yourself to war zone in which also your anxiety goes away. So what you see here is that the more and more over time that you accumulate all these feelings, the more and more you shift away from what normal society is. Some people will react more strongly to this. Reactions will always be relived over time because you stay in the same situations. You should get some help to work through these reactions. And during the deployment, it's not possible to recover from traumatic experiences. So you have to learn to deal with them, but it's not possible to recover. So recovering is something on the long term. I would like to ask Sébastien to tell something more about his personal experience about recovering and not recovering. These are slides, I will jump over them because you also had these same contents in the presentation of Po.
Thank you, Eric. Just before that, I just would like to react on two things about humanitarian worker. You talk about sexuality. In the Red Cross is strictly prohibited. Even to watch pornography, you risk your job. So you are in mission during 1 year. You are not supposed to go. If you go to see prostitute, it's the same. You will be kicked off of the mission. If you watch pornography in your room at night, it's also prohibited because there is the concept of duty to care and the code of conduct, and it's only repressive. On all this, it's a huge, huge taboo. That's why you quite often see humanitarian people having sexual adventure on the field, because you have frustration on both sides, even if you have a wife at home. And the difference, we go for 1 year, and during 1 year, if you have children, you can go back 2-3 times at home for 1 week. But if you did not have children, but only a wife or a partner, you are not allowed to go back. Only exactly the same system that you describe, 1 week aside of the country where your wife can join you. Then about my personal trauma, I have not only one, in 2001 I have one serious security incident when I was humanitarian, we are not soldiers. We cannot defend ourselves. You are in a checkpoint and you are forced to witness atrocity. And when the people in front of you, they have a gun and they put this gun on your head, you just witness and you can do nothing. And this is the event. But the issue is when you arrive in your base and then your management, instead to provide you a minimum of acknowledgement, they just say, but you know what you do is wrong because why you didn't try to help those people, even if you get killed. Because you are an helper, you cannot complain, you need to help them, even if you get shot there. And what's happened after that? If you like your job, like was my case, you continue. But then you feel guilty because why I did not try to save those girls? Okay, so you put yourself in danger again, and then years are passing. You increase your trauma because you put yourself in the same situation with the hope to doing better at that time, but it never works like this. Then you reach a moment when you cannot hide it. Nightmare at home, it's difficult to go in a public place, you are permanently in alert. Enfin, all the nice symptoms of PTSD. Hélène can talk about this. She know me before. In my life, what changed my life? First, I was fired from the Red Cross. Then I meet Hélène. We co-create humanity. And then I have the opportunity to try all the method. It's what I did. And for me, it was the reconciliation therapy who really make a change. It was quite unexpected and completely unbelievable for me, because in some weeks, everything changed. I can go out, I can take the public transportation, I can able to talk, I don't have the nightmare, the dissociation, all this, it disappears. It's not miraculous, that's for sure. You need to work yourself. Yeah, from Professor Brunet. Yeah. And it works, but you need to work yourself. Huh? It opened the door, but then what was for me impressive, after almost 15 years, I was not able to go in the cinema with my daughter. And I noticed something change when one day I went with her, and I miscalculated the time, and I was in the middle of a crowd of people. And I feel okay. Then I noticed, it's strange, it's not like usual, I can go. And then I realized I can do more. And that's why I'm here today, huh? Because Hélène can talk. It was impossible for me to be on such place and to talk in public 2 years ago. That is clear. So that we can go out of this. But most important, if you are able to talk freely, because that was not the case in the Red Cross, you cannot talk about this. And this is really our role today with all our colleagues. It's not the end of the life. You have a trauma, you witness something on the field, but if you can talk and if you can find the appropriate support, you can live anymore. It's not the end of your life, because a lot of humanitarian people, they commit suicide because it's extremely brutal. You work for the Red Cross, you are in mission, you are supposed to help the population, and you are not supposed to help yourself. You are there for them. But when something goes wrong, you come back in your country, you get fired, and suddenly nobody. No email, no friend, nothing. The group is disappear, and you are left alone. And suddenly you become a beneficiary. It's extremely hard. Before you are a helper, and suddenly you are a beneficiary. How to deal with that? If you have nobody around you, you start to drink, and at the end you commit suicide. And it's happening.
Ok, si tu veux dire quelque chose, Hélène, il faut dire. So just if you look back at this powerful event group support, this is something what we do after one event, after one fire intervention, for example. But imagine what Sébastien is telling us, brief situation review. After 1 year, it's impossible to reconstruct the intervention. First impression, it's impossible to regroup all these first impressions. So the only thing left is after homecoming, you have the signals of distress. You have what they told you before. No one asked you for the personal impact because you're not supposed to talk about your personal impact. So you have the accumulation of all these situations, of all these first impressions. There is no adaptation work on a cognitive level. So this is a model which is not possible for multiple intervention debriefing. We have to use other techniques, and I don't think at this moment we found the right technique, but we should start thinking about this. What we also saw in the presentation of Paul is that when you go into first psychological aid or first support, the more the arousal, physical arousal, or the more the emotional level is high, the less you will use this model working on the personal impact. Because when soon after traumatization you do work on the emotions, you contribute to destabilizing the individual. So you have to find something to withhold the individual with a breakdown of his emotions, to go deeper and deeper and deeper in the emotions. Another problem you have in a lot of NGOs or humanitarian aid workers is that you don't have, as the employer, as the organization, even as a psychologist, you don't have any information about the individual life of the person you're sending away. If you would go into scientific research, you will find that the biggest predictor of post-traumatic adaptation is the pre-traumatic mental health. And if we're just looking at females, throughout all Europe, 1 out of 4 females has a background of sexual assault and sexual violence in her personal life. In men, it's 1 out of 8. 7 or 8 approximately. What I find in working with special police units and special army units is that most of our special forces have a background as battered child. They are coming out of toxic families. Small boys beaten up by their father. Because otherwise, why would you want to become a sniper? Why do you make the choice of becoming an elite soldier with the permission to shoot at people? If you would go and look into the personality structure of these personnels, you would find paranoia, psychopathological structure, and also psychopathy structure. Not in the high clinical stage, but clinically significant. But if you look at caregivers, humanitarian aid workers, why do we want to save others? It's a hysterical choice. Why don't we choose a job in which we work less and we earn more money? No, we work a lot. We're almost volunteer or underpaid. If you look at the salaries for people working from Doctors Without Borders, very low salaries. Sometimes like €1,000, €1,200 for being in a war zone somewhere in Darfur. So why do people do such dangerous work underpaid? It has to do with their personality, and that's something we should take into account pre-deployment.
Just because the first part was Eric's work, and we really like that slide. What makes you breaks you, but what breaks you makes you. And this is so true in what we have seen for our colleagues, current colleagues, coming back from the field. We can go to the next slide, Eric. Sorry, you want to take a picture? So this is us, Co-Create Humanity. Sorry? There's a slide before this? It's this one. Okay. You want to talk about the conclusions, or that's fine? We can go. Yeah, this is the conclusion of the different stages. So. Eric, you want to say a word about it? No, it's okay. Go ahead. So Co-Create Humanity is a Swiss association. We are based in Geneva. And we co-founded that association only 4 years ago. We are 3 co-founders. We're all volunteers. And what we do is peer support. We are taking care of people who are suffering, humanitarians who are suffering. And we decided to create that association based on our own life experiences and traumatic experiences. And our aim is to make Geneva a hub of thought on mental health and psychosocial well-being, and to create a place of psychosocial rehabilitation for humanitarian workers, because there's no place at all like this. It doesn't exist at all. And we were really inspired by what France has done for the military by creating the Athos houses, Maison Athos, since February 2021. So far, you have 5 Maison Athos, and the objective is to have 10 of them until 2030, 2030. Can go to the next slide. What is peer support? You have the pioneer of peer support in France, the professor Nicolas Franck, who's working in Lyon, au centre hospitalier Le Vinatier. And you can see that what peer support brings to, what kind of knowledge they have is what we call, le savoir expérientiel, experiential knowledge. This experiential knowledge is totally complementary to what mental health professionals do have. We're not going to take, the position of what mental health professionals are doing, but we are totally complementary. And this is really important in what we do, because there's no community of peer supporters in the humanitarian sector. People are doing that with intuition, but there's nothing very official. That's why we decided to co-create Humanity 4 years ago, because we created something that we wanted to have. We can go to the next slide, Eric. This is the words we like to recall to people, that nobody should be left behind or unduly suffer because of the choice to engage in the sector. As Eric said, there are a lot of volunteers. The estimation today is more than 600,000 people all around the world of humanitarians who are paid. But if you take into consideration all the volunteers, just for the Federation of the International Red Cross, it's already 2 million. So think about other organizations such as the Red Cross, International Committee of the Red Cross, local Red Cross, etc. So you have millions of people out there volunteering, and sometimes who are not prepared. Not prepared and not taken in charge after they are deployed on the field. And with this association we have created, we aim to provide a supportive community where there is known, and when it is necessary, all the actions we are doing, all the support we are providing is for free. Why? You can't ask a Syrian guy or a Cambodian guy to pay, I don't know, $30 a month just to get some support from the community. So all actions have to be free. We hope that foundations, organizations, and some of the veterans will help us to keep that work. So far, after 4 years, we are still volunteering, but we know that what we do is totally necessary and imperative for the colleagues who are suffering, and most of them are suffering in silence. We decided to recruit a peer support specialist pool in 2021. So far, we are only 12 people, but we are doing a lot of work with what we have. We can go to the next slide. You want to say a word about this? So this is just something that you can take a picture. It's all the characteristics you already know. To be a peer support specialist, what we call PSS, you can't do improvisation. This is not something we have in mind. there's a real professionalization of peer support. That's why we are currently working with Sylvain Goujard on a training for mental health first aid and peer support, because you need supervision. You need to know your own limits. We're all human beings. So you should have some, personality, etc. But of course, the knowledge of the humanitarian context is important. Having the mental health first aid training or equivalent, etc. But I think you already know this. And what is really important when you are a peer supporter, you got through a trauma, but you can recover from it. You can't be a proper peer supporter if you're still trying to heal. You need to recover from this. We can go on the next slide. Guys, it's for you. So you have illustrations of... Yeah, this one.
Ça y est. J'avais l'impression de réintégrer une vie civile abandonnée depuis longtemps. En arrivant à Londres, je me suis replongé dans des études et dans la rédaction d'un manuel de chirurgie de guerre. Je voulais me prouver que j'en étais capable, me changer les idées. Je me sentais bien. Un soir, je me baladais tranquillement avant de rentrer chez moi. Mais soudain, une odeur particulière me surprit. Me revoilà dans les côtes de Sabra et Shatila. Il me regarde, me demande de l'aide. Je suis entouré de cette procession de visages, ces regards effrayés, perdus, en détresse. Je sors de mon corps, je me vois souffrir. Je ne pouvais rien faire pour aider, ni les autres, ni moi. De retour au présent. Soulagé d'avoir réussi à surmonter ce mauvais moment. J'avais vécu ce qu'on appelle une dissociation.
If you can put the subtitles in English as well, would be great. So this was just a first motion
Le monde
design.
ne ralentit pour personne.
Just to explain you that we have worked with l'École Gobelin de Paris, which is one of the best schools of the world for image and animation. We work with students who have no knowledge at all of the humanitarian context, and we ask them to do something with all the testimonials we received. And for example, you had the symptoms of PTSD, so that was illustrated, and now you have a short video to explain what is peer support.
Albanie, 1999. Je suis responsable psychosocial à Tirana. Je rencontre des expatriés et du personnel humanitaire international. Ils me racontent les journées où ils ont aidé les réfugiés à franchir la frontière entre le Kosovo et l'Albanie, obligés de dormir sous leur lit pour éviter le ricochet des balles qui faisaient rage dans les rues. Lorsqu'ils me parlent en privé, ils s'ouvrent un peu plus sur leurs craintes et me racontent les souffrances dont ils ont été témoins, les blessés qu'ils ont soignés, et partagent des histoires d'atrocités que leur ont racontées les réfugiés. J'ai été amenée ici pour soutenir les réfugiés kosovars, mais je vois plutôt un besoin flagrant de soutien parmi ces dizaines d'humanitaires au bord du burn-out. Il semble que personne n'ait remarqué leur épuisement professionnel. Je décide alors de créer un groupe de soutien. Je l'appelle Aide aux aidants et je distribue des prospectus dans les ONG pour annoncer la première réunion. Je dirige ce groupe de soutien au cours des semaines suivantes. le groupe offre un refuge à ceux d'entre nous qui ont travaillé avec ces réfugiés pour partager leurs expériences, se soutenir et s'entraider.
We have a lot of others the same style on our YouTube channel. Just about us on the humanitarian. For us, humanitarian is not a job. It's a way of life on acting. You talk about COVID. When during the COVID time you help your neighbor to go to shopping, it's to be humanitarian. It's already there. In our action, we really want to provide also support for the locals. It's important because you have all these small hands recruited locally in the country, and for them there is nothing. There is nothing because for many organizations they believe, you know, there is war since 10, 20, 50 years, so they get used to it. They are very strong people, they are resilient, and they are almost happy there, huh? So why we should help them? That is something that I am really shocked about it. If I am alive today in front of you, it's because I have been saved 3 times by those people. The small hand, the people that we always forgot, the driver, the secretary, the gardener, all the small hand behind every operation. And it's really what we want to do with our peer support. It's to have people from all around the world who can speak in the local language, because it's important to speak in your mother tongue. And it's really a service that it should be free. It should be free because in any employer, if you are a humanitarian, you cannot talk about this. Not today. There is still a huge taboo, and you take a risk. You are supposed to help the victim. You are not supposed to talk about yourself. If you talk about yourself, it's because you are too sensitive to do this job. This is the famous answer from RH and other people. It's wrong. But we are still fighting taboo, and we are here to provide, to do what we can do. And also, we are really lucky that we have a lot of professionals like you to find the right psychiatrist who can understand what it means to work in Congo, in Darfur, in Nagorno-Karabakh, in Yemen, in all that hot place. It's not that easy. So,
if you can go back to the illustrations, Eric, the illustrations number 1, just to let you know that how we do advocacy. Nobody wants to hear about mental health, and even more in mental health in the humanitarian sector. They're going to say, okay, you're traumatized, it's on you, guy. You choose that work. So the only way we found as a small association is to do advocacy work through art, through music, through sport, through educational projects like we did with L'École Gobelin. Every month we organize what we call Humani Café, just to gathering some humanitarians and to talk about, just daily life. And every month we organize webinars and workshops online, which are totally free. You discuss about compassion fatigue, about PTSD, about burnout. If you go on our YouTube channel, you will see all the webinars we have done so far, and the first hour of presentations is recorded. So all the colleagues from all around the world have access to those information. They have tools to take care of themselves, because some of them do not dare to talk to their families, even to peers, even to psychologists. So just to make sure that all the tools are available for them on our YouTube channel. And we work as well with professionals, as we said, like Eric, like Sylvain, like you. The training, we talk about reconsolidation therapy, so Professor Alain Brunet is working closely with us. And yes, every month we talk about different topics that are raised up by the humanitarian community. This is not something that we pick up by random, but we are listening to them and we ask them what they need. We can go to the next slide. And as we said, music takes a big place in our way to advocate. Why? Because this is something emotional. If you want people to pay attention to what you do, you have to touch them to their soul, to their emotions. And we, as human beings, even in times of conflicts or natural disaster, we will always be creative. We will always do something around music, about art. And this is something that came up to our minds because when we created ourselves, honestly, how to talk about the grand public to people who have no clue about what is being a humanitarian, how to talk about this. And art is the only way we found to be close to people and to advocate, because when people are coming to a concert, they're not going to see only classical music, beatbox, handpan, or anything else. They are coming for a cause, for a mission, for an action. And this is what we want to share. So the 15 minutes when we start before the concert, we're telling people, you're not here by a random, maybe you know someone who would like to engage in the sector, in the humanitarian sector. Maybe you know someone who's currently on the field. Or maybe you know someone who's retired from the field, because PTSD is not coming when you are on missions. It comes after, when you are taking a rest, when you are retired. And we are here, we are covering several generations of humanitarians, those who will go on the field for the first missions, those who are currently on the field, and those who are retired, and of course, the families, because you always have collateral damages. So, to cover all those generations, we have classical music with our official ambassador, Julie Sevilla-Fraisse. She's an international cellist. And we have now a second ambassador, which is Stéphane Toureau. He's the worldwide freediving vice champion. So he joined us in January 2024. And we're really happy to propose very soon some retreats in Tenerife with him. And we will keep on doing advocacy like this, because there's no way that people can escape what we do. The more you will normalize what is that being traumatized as a humanitarian is something normal. And the more you will have, proper support for them. And this is something we'd like to remind, because Dr. Dufouz was a friend or mentor, and he died in April 2021. And he said these things: human beings have the incredible ability to rise from anything, even the worst, if they are properly supported. And in French, l'être humain a la formidable capacité de se relever de tout, même du pire s'il est bien accompagné. This is something we like to recall to our colleagues, to institutions, and to everyone, because together we are and we will always be stronger. Thanks.
Okay, well, I think this is the end of our sessions. We did well, mostly for ourselves, but as already said, I hope that this was a general repetition for something we will do in other places, before larger audience, and maybe in the shape of a webinar. So I invite each one of us to take back lessons learned from our contents, see if between the during and the after we can take out the redundancy, make our story even stronger. And I would like to thank you all for having been here, for spending the time and the investment. It is important that you all keep your bills together in order to send them to Nicolas Lefebvre. And this is it. Merci aussi pour le soutien
Merci
technique
beaucoup.
Derrière. On était peu, mais on était de grande qualité. Donc voilà.
Do you have any questions, or you can go to our website? We are on all social media except TikTok, as we said, but you can follow us with all the events that we provide. And the next event will take place in Switzerland on the 2nd of March with a classical concert. Voilà.
Merci. Merci beaucoup pour votre travail et votre présentation, du coup. J'ai une petite question. En ce moment, c'est ce que je racontais tout à l'heure, on est en train de se pencher au sein de la Croix-Rouge française, donc à Paris, sur la création de formations sur les risques psychosociaux liés au travail humanitaire et en particulier au secourisme. En l'occurrence sur le territoire national, mais c'est des choses qui peuvent varier aussi. Pour vous, c'est quoi les choses principales dont il faut discuter avec les futurs secouristes pour les préparer justement non seulement à reconnaître, mais aussi à prendre en charge leurs propres problèmes psychologiques éventuels?
Nous avons eu affaire à la Croix-Rouge française qui nous avait mandaté pour créer une formation sur la gestion du stress intense. Nous avons délivré cette formation au RH et nous n'avons jamais eu de retour. Voilà. Oui. On sait qu'il y a... la question que tu amènes là, c'est donner des outils en fait aux gens. Giving tools, ça c'est l'essentiel. What we try to do at our level is to develop like digital tools les premiers secours en santé mentale, la gestion du stress, la gestion de l'anxiété, etc. This is important to have all the tools that you can reach immediately. So digital applications are really important in the evolutions of the humanitarian context. Because everyone has a smartphone today. Maybe you won't dare to talk to your neighbor, to your peers, to your family, etc., but you will always have your phone with you. So this is really important for us as peer supporters and even professionals to make sure that we have also digital tools for this.
But more pragmatically today, for me, the main, not solution, but is to can talk with somebody who can understand you. Typically, if I take a pragmatic example, in Chad, suddenly we need to go to collect 150 wounded guys in the middle of the desert. We don't have ambulance. We have only trucks. How you do that? You cannot load people on the trucks. Fortunately, I was so happy to call retired humanitarian, former military guys from the German army. And honestly, I was young, new, first mission. It was so great to talk with somebody with experience and to call him, Manfred, I need to do that. I have no clue how to do it. He has the experience and he explained me and he gave me the solution. And it's so important today to have this connection between generations because the problem that we have, some people already passed through it and we should benefit for them. And it's really our motto, it's together, but you need to have a place where you can talk. Simply, the example what I was saying, you arrive in mission, you see these dead animals around the street, it's not that good. But you feel better if you can say it to somebody who can understand. And what we always forget in the humanitarian sector is to say thank you for all the professionals, for the soldier, for the police, for the firefighter, all those guys who are helping us when we need help. We are so good to criticize, to say you did not achieve your objective, but we forget to say thank you. You do what you can. It's already enough.
Yeah, and also next to thank you, help with meaning making and meaning reconstruction. If you come back from Darfur, Somalia, Congo, and you've been there 4 months, 6 months, 1 year, and you go back and you see no change, someone has to say to you, if you did what you could with the means you had, and you did something good for someone, it's okay. So the criterion is not, do I have to go to Darfur to solve the war? No, do I have to go to Darfur to explain maybe to one child what the word peace means? I think we have to try to stop, but can also leave you some last reflections.
Well, this last things you said is very involved me because really, yes, when you come back, you need an answer about what you did. If it was insane, had a meaning, and was worth it, and you can enjoy the fact that you can peer to talk with or a professional, but you must discuss this topic, I think.
You know, there is your headquarters, there is the management, but there is the people. If I take one pragmatic thing, in Congo-Brazzaville, it was that day for me, it was too much. I just hid myself behind the generator and I was crying. Suddenly, somebody grabbed me, it was a lady, she kissed me, and she just said, thank you to stay with us. Then she left. I don't know her, but she did that.
Merci beaucoup derrière pour tout le travail effectué. Merci.